What's the worst up you've had that you'll admit on your deathbed? Story 1. I was using the laundromat at my university's dorms, and one of my tops fell half out, making the door not sealed but still locked. Long story short, the place was flooded. I tried stopping the machine, but couldn't. I tried calling the number of the machine, no one answered. I tried to clean it but didn't have anything to do it with, so when the machine finished I took my clothes, skedaddled out of there. Story 2. I got blamed for pushing a guy down the stairs after he tried to fight me. Had a few witnesses back me up saying he slipped. Ended up in a wheelchair for a while. I pushed him. Story 3. I turned off the call logger over the Christmas period. The company was closed. Long time ago in a corporate far, far away. Traditionally the company closed over the Christmas period. Woohoo, typically 2 weeks, fully paid. New sales director joins the company, spouting the importance of call statistics and logging. He had an expensive call logger installed. My business unit had the only network server in the company with the only hard disks big enough to accommodate the call logger and its database. So to keep costs down, the SD had the logger installed on my server while I was on holiday. Without telling me, I obviously found it but said nothing. I'm in the management meeting where he announces that he will monitor the call stats across the Christmas break to determine if we should stay open instead of closing the next year. Management team looks at each other nervously. The evening where we are shutting down the office, powering off printers, terminals and terminal servers, the main ERP as it was then, my final act was to shut down my file server and obviously the call logger with it. Return to work, obviously no call data. Company stayed closed the next year and paid for dedicated server after. 200 people got a 2-week break because of me. Edit. Thank you for the internet points, internet strangers. Story 4. I stole a kid's playset once. Answered an ad on Craigslist to pick up free kids' wooden playhouse swing set. Got the street right but must have gotten the house numbers mixed up. Pulled up to a house I thought was it. Knocked on the door and no one answered. Disassembled the playground and threw it in the trailer. Several hours later I got an email from the Craigslist person bitching that I never showed up. Edit. No, I never gave it back. I never responded to the email. Too much embarrassment. All I did was go back a couple weeks later and confirm my screw-up. The house still had an empty mulch pit from their missing set. I do remember seeing a bunch of small kids' toys in their yard and thought it strange they were getting rid of their playhouse. To this day my wife and kids have no idea they are playing on stolen goods. I've contemplated randomly putting it back in their yard a dozen years later to make it right. My buddy who helped us since moved to another part of the country. Every 8 months or so I get a text saying just told the story again. Never gets old. Edit. One of the 6 people in this world who knew the story just saw the post and called me the F out. So much for this Reddit account, I guess. Story 5. My POS little brother who was 17 and selling drugs begged me to sell some jewelry at a pawn shop for him to pay off a traffic ticket. I hated this idea. Asked where he got the jewelry. He said it was an exchange on a drug deal from a guy in a city an hour away. I did it in hopes he could get his license back and get a real job. The jewelry turned out to be my grandmother's. The little swiped it when he was helping my mom clean out her apartment shortly after she passed. I was so disgusted and tried to buy it back but it was too late. He'll never tell my mother, but holy geez did I let him know what a POS he is. Story 6. Leaving Kathy. She was a good person, kind, generous and caring. I was at the time and very much into me. I regret it every single day and wish I could tell her how sorry I am. Update. While I'm totally blown away by the responses to this. To those who have, thank you. Quick summary. I'm very happy in my current relationship and Kathy is and always will be my greatest up and regret till the day I die. She didn't deserve the way I treated her when we broke up. To one commenter. Yeah, she probably doesn't want to see me ever again and maybe she doesn't want to be found. Honestly, I wouldn't blame her. To Kathy. I don't have the words to express how sorry I am for how I treated you. I can't begin to imagine how you felt that day and I realized too late that nobody, especially you, should ever be treated like that. I wish you happiness. Story 7. Edit. Thank you for my first ever award on Reddit. I did not expect anyone to even see this comment in the huge thread of confessions. I'm glad so many people have enjoyed my shame. I was a little bullshitter as a kid and one of my elementary school rivals' best friend's kids are dumb got a puppy. I was jealous so I told everyone that my dog was going to have puppies. I kept up the ruse for weeks. Finally, the enamibestie was due to come over to my house. I knew I was in deep so I came up with the best and also darkest idea. All the puppies died. We had a massive unkempt backyard so I made a pile of rocks and put sticks in the shape of a cross. When she came over, she asked my mom about it. My mom said there were no puppies. And I told my friend that mom was just so devastated she wouldn't talk about it. I showed her the grave. My dog who was spayed the whole time was standing in the yard with us solemnly looking at a pile of rocks. She thought we were out there to play fetch so she just stood next to me which made my friend further believe my dog was mourning her puppies. That was the end of it and I never fessed up or admitted it to anyone. Story 8. In 3rd grade I said something to a kid that was in trouble that made him go off even more. I think he got expelled and I don't remember what I said exactly. I'm sorry Troy. Story 9. My dog got sprayed by a skunk when I was in middle school and he rubbed a bit against my backpack when he ran in freaking out. I tried to not bring the backpack to school but I had so much stuff that I had no choice and my mom was having none of it. The lockers at school were in bays so they were backed up against each other. I shoved the backpack in my locker when it was empty and it got a lot of attention from students and faculty for how bad the smell was. The smell was blamed on these 2 popular girls who had their locker backed up against mine, as their bay had most of the scent for some reason. I pulled my backpack out later, and it hardly smelled at all for some reason, almost as if the skunk stank literally drifted from my bag to their locker, never got caught for it. Story 10. I my pants on the playground in 3rd grade because the substitute teacher wouldn't let me back inside. When we finally went back inside, I made a beeline to the toilet, trashed my underwear and desperately tried to clean out my shorts, to no avail. They were black so they didn't show the obvious stains. We had to line up on the second square from the wall going back into class, and the person behind me loudly stated that someone smelled like. I jokingly blamed the class pariah and everyone ran with it. He got made fun of the rest of the year, but it was actually me. My bad, Robert. Story 11. I once hit reply all on a company-wide email to complain about the company, spent the next 2 hours updating my resume and sweating through my soul. Story 12. I once said to a patient something to the effect of, "Is this your little brother?" Turned out the skinny 13-year-old boy with a buzz cut was actually her 19-year-old girlfriend. These days I sometimes console myself after telling people their relatives have died in shitty circumstances with the thought of, oh well, at least this wasn't bad as that one time. Story 13. I had a really troubled childhood and drank a lot in high school and first 3 years of college. Heavy, I am no longer that person. But anyway, senior year of high school I went to a concert with friends and got so messed up I got kicked out of the concert. My friends stayed and I guess my plan was to sleep it off in the car. I didn't do that. I have vague memories of running around the surrounding neighborhood knocking on people's doors. Who knows why honestly, and I remember one very sweet family answered the door, sat me in their living room, gave me water while I sobbed. Again why, and they called the cops to deal with me. I'm lucky this was not current times where people are not always so nice. The cop called my parents, they picked me up. I am still to this day so mortified about my nonsense impeding on this family late at night. I pray only good things for that family every day. Story 14. I pushed the school bully off the top of the big slide. He broke his arm and no one believed him when he accused me because I was 5 years younger, tiny and a good kid, and I've never regretted it. Story 15. A lot of people clogging toilets. Anyway, I was 4 years old and set fire to some weeds near my grandparents' house and almost burned the whole farm down. The firefighters came and put everything out. Took them a while to combat the blaze. They put it out and absolutely no one asked me anything, cause I was 4, I guess. I wonder if my grandparents knew to an extent, probably. Story 16. We had and fell asleep immediately after. I got up in the middle of the night, and saw a brown puddle in the sheets. Right after that I got dressed, left silently, and I haven't contacted the guy since. Story 17. When I was in 5th grade, I thought it'd be cool to light a single match and casually walk away, except instead of a small dramatic flame, I accidentally roasted the entire huge front yard of a massive Soviet apartment block. When I came back the next day, every blade of grass was crispy black, with the unexpected bonus of a thoroughly barbecued car sitting right in the middle. Story 18. I was driving a short bus to take some kids on a field trip. I'm a teacher, not a bus driver, but generally a very good driver and no idea what I was thinking, and to be fair, it was a newer bus and was bigger than the older ones. But before I picked up the kids, pulled into the parking lot, thought I could get through, and when I realized it was a tighter squeeze than I thought, instead of backing out and going the long way around, I decided to try anyway. I scraped against someone's car. This was at my school, a very small school with like 25 staff. The front of the school is all huge windows, and the office staff faced them all day. Somehow no one saw what happened. I backed out, went on with my day and never said a thing, and never heard anyone mention damage to their car. Story 19. I was walking home after a house party nice and drunk and saw another house party, so I rolled in as if I knew people, said hey, thanks for inviting me, and grabbed a beer from the box. Went to pee, and accidentally dropped my beer bottle and it sheared off the side of the bowl, so knowing I was straight, calmly flushed the toilet, saw how I compounded the mistake, and calmly left, never to be seen again. Story 20. I had the worst domino effect through I was on chemotherapy and had some fun after a while. That fun turned into having an E. coli infection. That infection led to me withering in pain for 3 weeks while having blood come out of me instead of poo daily. That fun then led to me staying in a hospital for nearly 2 months. It then probably led to me experiencing the worst pain I have ever felt for 7 days without sleeping. Then they gave me too many painkillers. Then I developed psychosis. It all led up to so much more, weighed 47 kilograms at 180 centimeters at one point. It probably explains why my pain center is broken and I experience pain so severely. Probably explains why I have IBS and just a lot of colon problems. It basically made the 3 to 6 months cancer therapy, which worked very well, turn into a living and extended it to 12 months till I was healthy again. It also me up mentally to this day, which I was not in a good spot before either. It probably led to my father's suicide too, which occurred 6 months after my diagnosis. Everything because of and not watching out enough. Are you kidding me? Story 21. I was 14 at a baby shower and there was a little girl probably 5 and her mom who sat next to me. This was when filters on Snapchat were popular, and kids love filters so we started to play with them. Well, there was a bald filter, I did it on me and she laughed so I did it on her. The mom saw it and said oh she probably doesn't like that. She used to have cancer so seeing the bald head makes her sad. Oh my gosh, I'm actually cringing typing this out, I feel like a terrible person. Story 22. Back in the 90s I traded my foiled Zapdos for a foiled Blastoise. I was young and naive and unaware. The moment trade was done, the kid whipped out his card binder, flipped through the entire thing, and there was one empty spot left out of original 151 Pokemon, and slipped my card into the only empty spot. He completed the collection. Everyone erupted with applause and congratulated him, with me standing there in disbelief. He didn't even mention Jack to me about that. I got hustled hard. I will regret this until the day I die. Story 23. I was overbearing with someone who could have potentially been the love of my life. I've never been like that ever, but essentially it was a complex result of me not respecting some of my own boundaries that I usually would, and going too fast after a relatively recent breakup. I should have told her how I felt, but also that I wasn't quite ready early on. All of this could have been avoided. Story 24. I started a dumpster fire. A literal dumpster fire where I almost burned down my apartment. Our apartment had a fireplace and I had grabbed all the ashes into a plastic trash can. After the whole fire went out, I went out to the dumpster and dumped it in. 15 minutes later there were like 4 fire trucks outside, and flames flying 15 feet in the air. Flames were also catching part of the carport next to it on fire. I thought, wow, who's that did that? Then I looked at my plastic garbage can and saw a 1-inch hole where an ember had burned through it and realized I was dead. They ended up having to replace the carport. This was around 1993 and was way before security cameras became common. Thank God. What a god I was. The funny thing is that my wife, when she got home, immediately guessed I had done something stupid. She didn't tell anyone but knew right away. Many years ago I had to provide a urine sample at the doctor's. The nurse led me into the nurse's desk area and told me to wait there, so I put my wee sample on the little workstation whilst I found something in my bag. I knocked that thing over and it spilled everywhere, all over paperwork, the pen pot, files, the lot, everywhere. I'm there trying to mop it up and a guy in a suit runs past me with a sample cup and narrowly misses bashing into me. The nurse comes out maybe 30 seconds later and looks pissed off when she sees the mess. I blamed it on the guy that came out almost running into me. Being mean when I was scared, too many mistakes. Story 25. When I was in 5th grade, my friend brought a pretty powerful magnet to school. We then found out it messes with the monitors if you gloss over it real quick with a magnet. We did this to the entire computer lab. Had no idea it broke the monitors and we never spoke about it again after that LMAO. Story 26. Went to a Halloween party hosted by the girlfriend of one of my homies. Had to go out to my car to grab something. I got back to the apartment and forgot to take my shoes off. After a minute I noticed a smell. I look at my shoe and I had stepped in dog. In a blind panic I went to the bathroom to try and clean my shoes. To make matters worse I used the sink to clean my shoes. The same sink she uses to wash her face, brush her teeth, etc. I got my shoes cleaned and went back to the living room. Moments later Laura, not her name, raises her voice and loudly asks who tracked dog in my house. Everybody in the apartment went dead quiet like a DJ had scratched the stylus across a record. My face was red and I felt about 2 inches tall. I sheepishly exclaimed it was me, as everybody in the party is now looking at the two of us. She then says you aren't supposed to wear shoes in the apartment. It just got worse when she found out I used her sink to clean my shoes. I honestly can't remember anything after that. I try to just blank this memory out. Thanks for the reminder, OP. Story 27. I did a reading at my son's wedding. I was carrying a cell phone in the front pouch of a kilt I was wearing for the ceremony. The couple wanted a Scottish theme. And of course I didn't turn it off before standing up at the podium. My brother, who was running late, gave me a call at the moment I started my reading. Fortunately for me, the podium had a gap in the front, so instead of the sound coming up to my microphone, it traveled out to the pews. Everyone started reaching for their phones to check that they had shut them off. There were over 60 people there, and nobody was looking my way. I slipped my hand into the pocket and shut the phone off while they were distracted. At the reception, people came up to me and apologized for allowing their phones to ring, and that they couldn't reach them in time to shut them off. A lot of people were angry, and there was a lot of discussion at the reception about who would have been so rude. Nobody suspected it was me, and it's gonna stay that way, not saying anything, not even on my deathbed. Story 28. There was a super nerdy guy who transferred into my school in 7th grade. He had a prickly attitude and we didn't get along well. I didn't bully him. We would just occasionally argue like usual school kids who just don't like each other. For what I honestly don't remember because I was generally a laid-back dude and got along with most everyone. We did find out his mom had pretty recently died of cancer before he transferred, which of course, later made sense why he was such an at times. There was one time on a class field trip he and I were really bickering and he said something nasty about me in front of a bunch of guys, which was very embarrassing. I responded that I saw his mom over the weekend in the Return of the Living Dead movie. This was 1986 when it had just come out. He got really quiet and walked away sniffling. The guys we were with told me that was low, but I was so ticked off I never apologized. I heard later his dad's second wife also died somehow, and his dad was hit by a car in our city's downtown and killed about 20 years ago. To this day, it's one of the worst things I've ever done and still makes me cringe to think about, considering what awful his family endured. Story 29. Clogged the toilet with toilet paper at my new job at a school 2 weeks in. Left the mess there like nothing happened because I didn't know what to do later. A coworker was complaining to me about a little girl who'd clogged the toilet and kept denying it and lying to get out of trouble when she was told off. The little girl wasn't lying. It wasn't her. I did it. I felt sorry, but didn't bother correcting my coworker. Story 30. When I was in college I was taking a dump and there was someone next to me in the stall at the library. I ate 3 burritos the night prior. After getting done, the handle wasn't really working, so I pushed it down 4 times I think I used too much toilet paper as well. It completely overflooded in seconds with water. I was panicking and the dude next to me was like, Is this? I left the stall and could see the guy's legs try and stand up and he fell in my water. I ended up putting that toilet out of service for a week with caution tape around the men's restroom. It flooded into the carpet of the library. When working at the library on the computer, it was a forlorn reminder. I'm sorry man, you probably tell that story at a bar whenever you can. Edit more details of how I ruined a guy's day. Story 31 forgot to remove the gun safety pin while launching an F-16 in Afghanistan. Luckily they did not use the gun that mission, so only me and my colleague know. Story 32 ruined a relationship with a perfect girl back in 2000 as I was trying to get my foot in the door towards the UFC, was training like a madman, messed myself up in the head real good and just distanced myself from everyone. Ended up getting second place in a major tournament, needed first to advance and tore my shoulder. My journey ended there. Broken, defeated and lost the one person who cared about me the most. Still think about her to this day. Story 33 At 16, I got knocked up by my first boyfriend. I wanted an abortion but the county clinic lied and said I was too far along since we could hear the heartbeat. I gave birth a week after my 17th birthday and gave the baby up for adoption. Everything that happened during and after severely traumatized me, and I can pinpoint that is when my life went downhill for a couple of decades with drugs and alcohol, compounding traumas. Every time someone praises me for what I did, it feels like a gut punch remembering everything I lost, but I never admit the truth. I don't regret what can't be changed, but I wonder how different my life could have been. Story 34 I won't wait until my deathbed, but this is still a massive and recent up. I hung out with a guy from my boyfriend's parents' church years ago. Somehow the conversation turned to sexuality. I told him I am bi, he told me he is too. We chatted for a bit. I thought nothing of it after. Years later I was chatting with my boyfriend and his mum about that guy. I said, oh, he's the guy, right? To which his mum was shocked. I stumbled and said, oh no, I thought he was out. Maybe he only felt comfortable telling me because I'm also bi. Please keep that quiet and don't tell church group. I was quite drunk. I should have definitely covered for him better. Turns out, after 10 years of being in a relationship with my boyfriend, and not at all hiding or ashamed of my sexuality, ID actually never mentioned it to his parents. Many questions came next. She thought I meant I was polyamorous, asked if that's why we weren't married, and asked if I'd switch and want to leave my boyfriend for a woman. I abruptly went up to bed and we didn't speak about it in the morning. It's been about a year now, we've never spoken about it again. Story 35 When I like 21 I was showering after spending the night with a guy I took before I got in the shower and forgot to flush. We still dated after that and he never brought it up, so I don't know if this is really a up, but I wanted to kill myself. Story 36 Engaged to my wife and we were staying at her great aunt and uncle's. I slept on the couch, ended up peeing everywhere, cleaned it as best I could in the middle of the night and never said a word. To this day I'm not sure anyone knows and he'll probably keep it quiet even on my deathbed. Story 37 I'm speaking for my uncle on this. He clogged my parents' toilet from taking we had to take the whole toilet apart and my dad had to go into the pipe beneath to unclog it. Story 38 Not being with my grandmother on her deathbed. She was made comfortable by the care team at the hospital and was not awake. But I knew she would not have wanted to die alone. I was not strong enough to see my favorite person in the world die. I'll regret it forever. Story 39 I wasn't at the vet's during my cat's last moments on earth when she was being put to sleep for having both lung cancer and heart failure. That was 10 years ago, and it deeply haunts me to this day. I wasn't even doing anything important. I was just burying my head in the sand because I couldn't accept the reality. Story 40 I once had 2 girls that wanted to go out with me. I didn't want to go out with both of them at the same time because it would have felt slimy, so I had to pick between them. The one I picked to go out with friend-zoned me and the other one got a boyfriend right after. So basically I killed 2 birds with 1 stone on myself and got the worst possible outcome that still irks me to this day. Story 41 Rich, you went to Berkeley, you deserve so much better. I was cruel and careless with you. I hope your life turned out beautiful and gentle and passionate. I hope your NIN tattoo looks just as nice. I hope you found someone that treasures you because you absolutely deserve it. You are a gem. I got what I deserved, but I'm getting better now. Story 42 I was at a convention after party. I see this girl who looks cute, so I make my way over to her and try a lame conversation starter. The music was so loud she couldn't hear me. I repeated myself, she still couldn't hear me, so I lean over to practically shout into her ear and I promptly spit in her face. Somehow, these 3 droplets of spittle fly off my lips, make this impossible turn in mid-air and hit her right between the eyes. I freeze, realizing what I have done. I turn away, see like 4 other people, presumably her friends who are staring at me with their mouths agape and their eyes practically bulging out of their heads with horror. I turn tail and run all the way back up to my hotel room and spend the rest of the evening watching Star Trek reruns. Why is there seemingly always a channel at every hotel that just shows non-stop Star Trek? Story 43 My grandpa worked in an ammunition plant and taught me how to press my own bullets as a kid. I used the same backpack for school, and the bullet I was so proud of fell out at school. I pretended nothing happened. School went on lockdown. Dogs searched everyone's lockers. It was scary and I still feel bad about it. Story 44 There was a little girl I knew in 2018 or 2019, but I don't remember what year. She was 5 years old and of Indian descent. I met her on the bus, and she told me stuff about her parents. They didn't feed her enough, she'd only get a minute of sleep, I quote from her herself, before waking her up, and she did all of the chores by herself. I would have thought it was a joke, but she was 5, and something in her eyes told me she wasn't joking. So, after a month of knowing and being told the same stuff every day by her, I told the principal, she told a counselor, and I got called down. He told me that he called Rain's mom after the principal told him what I told her. He said that the parents actually feed her well and that the mom helps her clean her room, but I didn't buy it. I knew the mom was lying because what 5-year-old bawls her eyes out every morning telling another kid these things? And then not long after, she stopped coming to school. I never saw her again. It's been roughly 7 years since it happened. And I'm trying to figure out what happened to her because her disappearance still haunts me to this day. Story 45 stopped Apple's global payments processing for a few hours and then fixed it. Got recognized for fixing it and won an award, which meant I got a very expensive high-performance trip, think 5 couple weeks paid vacation. No one figured out I also was responsible for breaking it. Story 46 in kindergarten, they played a game where the teacher flashes the lights on and off. It was clean up time. During playtime one day I had what I thought was ended up being more. A brown marble fell out of my shorts hitting the ground, then immediately the light started flickering and the teacher said, clean up, everybody clean up. I walked away from the area and paced in circles for a few minutes, then when I walked back it was gone. Someone bare hand picked up my deposit. Story 47 when I was about 11, I used to play with this girl who lived near me. She was so cool, slightly older than me. The rest of the kids on the street started to call her names one day, and I eventually started to join in. Natalie, I'm sorry, I don't really know what I was thinking. I hope you're doing well. Story 48 when I was married to my first wife, my stepson was a bit of a wimp. Kid just never stood up for himself. Kids would cut in line in front of him, take his stuff, bully him, and he just stayed quiet. One morning my ex-wife was in a rush to do something and asked me to take him to the bus stop. Most of the kids' parents didn't walk them. Most of the kids just walked themselves and waited on their corner. These 2 boys walked up to the bus stop and my stepson got really weird and hid behind me. I knelt down and asked him what was wrong. He told me those 2 boys were the ones who kept bullying him in the bus. These 2 boys specifically had alcoholic parents. The entire neighborhood knew because they were always drunk or on the porch drinking. I walked up to the 2 boys and said, hey, let me talk to you. They both turned and I quietly whispered, verbatim, if you ever bully stepson again, he'll come to your house and beat your dad right in front of your mom, and then he'll have CPS take you to a foster home. The 2 boys looked at me wide-eyed and just said, yes sir. They never bullied him again. Wicked inappropriate for me to do that. But it worked. About a year later I drunkenly told my ex-wife this story and she called me a monster. It was partially what led to my divorce. Edit sentence. Story 49 I was a waitress, and I was working during a very busy shift. I almost bumped into what I thought was a child, so I placed my hand on his head and said, oh sorry little guy. I heard a full-grown man's voice reply, that's alright darlin'. He was a dwarf. I die inside every time I remember. Story 50 when I was 8, my fish tank was dirty. I thought hand sanitizer would clean it. Needless to say the fish weren't doing so well after, and my dad was very confused as to why they all died suddenly. Till this day I haven't told a soul. Story 51 my husband was cheating on me with a close friend of mine. I secretly sent the nude she texted him to myself, then created a fake FB account and sent all of them to her friends and family, including her, then I divorced him, both of them. One time I was at a popular party when I was about 12. It was a co-ed sleepover at a girl's grandparents' house, and as nighttime approached, I started getting really nervous and nauseous. At one point, I knew I was going to throw up, but I wasn't going to make it to the bathroom. My best friend at the time saw that I looked like I was going to puke and turned off the lights. I threw up on the floor, but it was really watery because I hadn't eaten all day from the nerves. We heard a scream, and when my best friend turned on the lights again, one of the girls had slipped in the vomit. We played it off like someone had spilled something, and then I called my mom to pick me up. So embarrassing. Story 52 I was bad with eating my lunch at school. Was hardly ever hungry. A few times I threw my lunch away when I got home, and some of those times I got caught and told off by my parents. So the stupid kid I was, thought the perfect solution was to not eat them, but to not throw them away. As you can imagine, that resulted in them being left in my bag, usually going moldy, until I could find an opportunity to dispose of them without risk of getting caught. Finally snapped out of that phase when there was an incident at school. Someone nicked a key from one of the keyboards, and as a result they wanted to do a bag search of our entire class. Instructed us to empty our bags onto the desks, etc. I was fortunate they didn't actually look in the bag, and trusted me enough to just accept the items I had laid out on the table, but I fully appreciated how narrowly I had avoided an awful situation. Story 53 trusted Google Maps for direction. I had to go to give an exam, ended up reaching 80 kilometers far from original one which didn't have S in the end. Now I am writing this comment on Reddit after having slaps from dad. Edit, don't worry folks. The slaps part is exaggeration. Don't call 911D. Story 54 stole my friend's sister car, got high with her brother, crashed into a parked car, returned the car, police did an investigation, never found out it was me. Story 55 I put honey in a pedo's cart and he got pneumonia when I was 16. I don't feel bad for hitting a lick on a pedo, but I feel bad for making his mom go into medical debt to pay for his sorry. But dude raped my friend when she was 15 and he was 22, so that dude. Story 56 I took 20 from my stepdad's wallet in MS because I had no money for lunch. I never told him, but a few years later, while traveling to see family, I had a job at this point and a good chunk of change saved up. I paid for his, my mom, and my nice dinner at an airport halfway through the travel. They both had stepped away to use the BR, and I secretly paid the bill and asked the server to just say it's on the house. He rolled with it, and family thought we were just super lucky. I tipped the server nicely. Story 57. When I was a kid, I used blue cake frosting to draw a mustache on an oil painting of my aunt that cost thousands. Since my cousin and his friends were there, she blamed them instead of me.